Good evening and welcome everyone to the middle school redistricting public hearing number 3. It is September 7th, 2021. My name is Tina Wilson, chairperson of the Charles County Board of Education. I'd like to welcome you and I'd like to call to order the meeting. At this time, I would like for you to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Thank you for joining us, and at this time, I will turn it over to the superintendent, Dr. Maria Navarro.
Good evening, Ms. Wilson, board members. We are here for a third presentation to the public regarding the proposed redistricting for middle schools. Staff is here to present the recommendations from the community groups that came together to provide them tonight. And we ask the viewing audience if they have questions or comments, if you could please put them in the chat. We are monitoring the chat, and any questions that we can respond to during this presentation, we will do so. We are also creating an FAQ for questions that we received in our previous 2 presentations, and we will have that available for the public. So we just request for you to please put in the chat your questions, and we'll get started with the presentation, and we're monitoring the chat. Thank you so much. I will pass it over to Steve to get us started on the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening to the board members and to Dr. Navarro, superintendent. My name is Steve Andritz. I'm the director of planning construction, and I am the co-facilitator of redistricting along with Brad Snow, the director of transportation. And give me just a second to share my screen and we'll bring up the PowerPoint. Can everyone see that on their screen? Okay, great. This is, as was mentioned, the comprehensive middle school redistricting for school year 22-23. And the information that's going to be presented utilizes data from school year 2019-2020. We want to also mention that the numbers have been updated to reflect all current changes. Bear with me just a second. Benjamin Stoddard Middle School is being currently renovated and expanded. It's a $48 million construction project. The square footage of the school is going to increase from 105,800 square feet to 148,317 square feet. The state rated capacity of the school is currently 711 students, and that will increase to 975 after completion of the project. This is a phased while occupied construction. The addition portion was completed to start this school year. The rest of the building will be renovated or demolished, and all of that work, as well as additional parking lot work out front, will be finished through the fall of next year, 2022.
Good evening, school board. Dr. Navarro and the general public is with us this evening. The superintendent's charge for the redistricting committee. The committee is charged with creating 2 alternatives that will establish new middle school boundaries. This is a comprehensive middle school redistricting with a focus on redrawing an expanded attendance zone for Benjamin Stoddard, which is receiving a complete renovation and expansion scheduled for the completion of 22-23. Board Policy 1900 establishes procedures for redistricting. Our goal is to move some students among all middle schools with due consideration of state-rated capacities, or what you will see throughout this presentation labeled as SRCs, and anticipated growth using target enrollments provided by school and county government staffs.
The general guidelines provided to the two groups of the redistricting committee were that all neighborhoods are eligible for redistricting except those currently designated as non-transport or walking zones. Additionally, whenever possible, neighborhoods should not be divided between two different schools. The committees were to account for current and residential development when meeting enrollment targets. Again, that was information that was coordinated through the local planning and growth management folks from the county, as well as growth staff from the town of La Plata. The committee was charged with consulting with transportation representatives regarding possible effects to existing bus routes when moving students or questions on ride times. Additionally, when proposing changes to this existing school zones, the committees were instructed to start from the outer edges of a school and start peeling back those outer sections or enrollment blocks away from a school and make your way until you balance as you desire.
As you can imagine, our timeline for redistricting has taken a bit of a change due to COVID-19. As you can see on the screen, in October of 2020, the redistricting committee was selected. Public information and town hall session was held October 26th virtually. November 2020, the redistricting committee began meeting weekly. The meetings were paused due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In May 2021, the committee resumed its weekly meetings. July 2021, the redistricting committee completed all of its work. August 2021, the board received a report on the committee's recommendations on August 10th. Public hearings were set on Monday, August 23rd, 2021 from 6 to 8 p.m. virtually, and Tuesday, August 24th, 2021 from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at La Plata High School. September 2021, virtual town hall set for Tuesday, September 7th, today, 2021 from 6 to 8 p.m. Superintendent would present the recommendation to the board at its September 14th meeting. Public hearings on that recommendation are set for Monday, September 27th, 2021 from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Westlake High School, and again Tuesday, September 28th, 2021 from 6 to 8 p.m. and that would be held virtually. October 2021, the board will take action. Redistricting decision will take effect at the start of the 22-2023 school year.
Next, we have some information on the redistricting committee and how it was established. At the board's October 13th, 2020 meeting, 11 parents were selected at random for drawing, 2 from the elementary level, 1 from the high school level, and 1 from each of the 8 middle schools. Additionally, the Board of Education selected 3 community members at large and 4 school principals. Additionally, it's important to note that the principals did not represent the middle school level. They came from either elementary, high school, or from schools that service alternative programs and also our tech ed and CTE curriculums. 3 local government planners from Charles County government and the town of La Plata, as well as CCPS staff, supported the committee in their work. Next, we have some maps we're going to get into, and this is a map that represents the current zones for middle school across Charles County. Next, we have an overview of Alternative A map. What you see here are the boundaries as proposed to be adjusted by Plan A by the group. And Alternative A moves 992 students. These are current students that are in the system. They are moved, but they may not actually move in a middle school. For example, because we're using 2019-2020 school data, the students in 2019-2020 were 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. So you may have 3rd graders who have not actually started middle school as of school year 22, and they will just go to a different middle school than they were originally zoned. But the impact to existing students under Plan A is 992 students. First slide here is for Davis Middle School. This is titled a changes map, alternative A. You'll notice that the outline in the dark black outline is what the zone is proposed to be under alternative A for Davis. You have a block in the upper right shown in green that is moving in from Madison. Green blocks are shown to be moving in, and if they were red blocks, they're shown to be moving out. And then additionally, in the lower portion of the screen, lower center, you have a green area from Henson moving into Davis. Davis's state rated capacity is 997. Their official September 30th, 2019 enrollment was 885. Their proposed school year 22-23 enrollment is 934, and their 25-26 school year enrollment is 950. This is a map showing what Davis's complete zone looks like. As we mentioned before, the school system uses enrollment blocks. Those are the four-digit number blocks that you see underneath. And this is how all students are based on address and how they're categorized so that they're able to be adjusted for redistricting. And then we have a third map that shows the zone with the road network underlaid, so folks are able to easily figure out where they may be located. Additionally, we will come back to at the end a reference to the interactive maps so that you can actually do searches. You can go right to typing in an address and find that. Mr. Snow will talk more about that. This is John Hanson Middle School changes for alternative A. They have two areas in red, one to the left, one to the lower center, that are moving out, one to Stoddard, one to Summers, and one small area moving in green from Stoddard. Capacity is 797. Their official September 30th, 2019 enrollment was 893. The proposal under A has them at school year 22-23 at 805 and school year 25-26 at 833. This is the blocks showing the complete zone. This is the complete zone with the road network underlay. Next, we have Matthew Henson Middle School. There are areas moving in from Summers in green on the lower right, areas moving out just above that to Davis in red. The state rated capacity of Matthew Henson Middle School is 668 students. The official September 30, 2019 enrollment was 811. Their proposal under Plan A for school year 22-23 is 654 students, and for school year 25-26, it's 666 students. This is the Matthew Henson zone as shown with the enrollment blocks, and the Matthew Henson zone shown with the road network underlaid. Next, we have Madison Middle School. You see there's one area in red in the upper center of the screen moving to Davis from Madison. Madison's state rated capacity is 912 students. Their official September 30th, 2019 enrollment was 1,026 students. The proposal for Plan A has Madison in school year 22-23 at 915 students and school year 25-26 at 943. This is Madison's plan with the enrollment blocks. This is Madison's zone with the road network underlay. Next comes Picklewaxen Middle School. You'll see there are areas in green along the upper area. 301 divides a portion of the zone on the left-hand side of the screen running north to south. The block to the left of 301 is coming from Summers to Picklewaxen, and then the other blocks to the right are also coming from Summers to Picklewaxen. The state rated capacity of Picklewaxen Middle School is 563 students. Their official September 30th, 2019 enrollment was 450. Plan A proposal has them at school year 22-23 at 551 students and school year 25-26 at 570 students. This is the plan with the enrollment blocks for Picklewaxen. This is Plan A's attendance zone for Picklewaxen with the road network underlaid. Next, we have General Smallwood Middle School. General Smallwood Middle School has an area to the right-hand side that is coming in from Milton Summers, shown in green. The state rated capacity of General Smallwood Middle School is 604 students. Their official September 30, 2019 enrollment was 527 students. Plan A's proposal has General Smallwood opening in school year 22-23 with 555 students. and in school year 25-26 with 560 students. This is Smallwood Zone with the enrollments block shown. This is Smallwood Zone with the road network under. Next, we have Milton Summers Middle School. You see there are areas in red to the south and to the west that are moving out to Picklewaxen, to Smallwood, and to Henson, and the piece in the center of the zone moving out to Stoddard. And then you have two green blocks on the upper right area moving in from Stoddard and in from John Hanson. State rated capacity of Milton Summers is 795 students. Official September 30, 2019 enrollment was 1,086 students. Plan A's proposal has Milton Summers opening school year 22-23 at 686 students and school year 25-26 at 860 students. This would be Milton Summers' new zone under Plan A with the enrollment block shown. And this is Milton Summers' zone with the road network underlay. The final middle school is Benjamin Stoddard Middle School, shown here in Plan A. You have an area to the south coming in from Summers in green, area to the west coming in from John Hanson. You have a small piece to the upper section to John Hanson and a piece to the south eastern side going to Summers Stoddard. The state rated capacity as shown here is 975 with an asterisk. That's the projected state rated capacity. That would not be finalized until after the school is opened. That we are confident that that will be the number that would be approved by the state submitted. Again, the current state rated capacity is 711. Official September 30th enrollment was 814 students, and Plan A has Benjamin Stoddard Middle School opening in school year 22-23 at 986 students, and in school year 25-26 at 1,018 students. This is Stoddard's zone as shown under Plan A with the enrollment blocks. And this is Stoddard's zone shown with the road network. I'm now going to turn it over to Mr. Snow to review Alternative B.
Thank you, Steve. We'll go through a quick look at Alternative B. Basically, the intent was to formulate one redistricting committee, set that up into two teams, and come up with two distinct plans. If you look at this plan versus Alternative A, one of the things that you'll notice right off the bat is the Davis zone is connected there at the center of the top. So there are pretty distinct features that differentiate the two plans. So we'll go through those now. Alternative B moves a total of 1,041 students. And as Steve mentioned earlier, those students would not necessarily be moving from one middle school to another. The zoning would take part, and those students would just be assigned to the middle school different than what they had been in the past. Go ahead. Next slide. Here you see the Davis zone changes by Alternative B. The state rated capacity for Davis is 997. The official enrollment was 885. Through Alternative B, as you can see on the map, we would be moving students out of the Davis zone to Mattawoman. We have some sections from Mattawoman and then from Henson and from Summers in the lower southern portion. For 2022 to 23, we would see the school size at 995 and the 5-year projected at 25-26 at 1,011. The next slide will simply show you the outline of the entire Davis zone. You'll again see the block numbers underneath, and those blocks have associated student counts with them. And also within those blocks, the growth factors due to development have also been accounted for. Next slide will simply show you the roads underneath the underlay, so people can get a good idea of where their house may lie within that block. Next slide. This is the Hanson zone, Alternative B. You'll see they have moved a couple blocks out to Stoddard over on the left-hand side. The state rated capacity for Hanson is 797. The official enrollment was 893. With the redistricting for Alternative B for Hanson, that would be at 2022-23 of 802 students, and 25-26, they would be at 831 students. Next slide. Again, you can see very clearly the attendance blocks underneath, and then the third slide would just show you, remove the blocks and show you the roadways underneath. Next slide. The Henson zone under Alternative B, you'll see on the map, we're moving block 3861 to Davis, and you're taking in 2 blocks from Summers for the Henson block. The state rated capacity of 668. The official enrollment was 811. The 2-year growth, 2022-23, would be 621. Then the 5-year, 25-26 at 633. You'll see the complete outline for Henson. And then the third slide simply shows you the roadway underlay. Next slide. The Madison zone for alternative B, you'll see bringing in blocks from Davis, moving blocks out to Davis to complete alternative B zone for Madison. State rated capacity of 912, the official enrollment of 1026. For school year 22-23, population of 880. In 2025-26, they will be up to 908. So that's the Madison alternative B. Underneath, you can very clearly see the attendance blocks and then the roadway underlay. Next slide. The Picklewaxen Zone, you can see very distinctly the northern part of the Picklewaxen Zone would be gaining a number of blocks from Summers. The state rated capacity for Picklewaxen was 563. The official enrollment, 450. The projections for 22-23 would be at 544. In 25-26, the projected growth would be 563 for Pico. And there you can clearly see that the blocks that are included make up the Picklewaxen school zone with the underlay roadways beneath. Smallwood zone, changes for alternative B. You can see a great deal of movement from Summers over to Smallwood. The state rated capacity for Smallwood is 604. Official enrollment was 527. The projected growth for 22-23 was at 573. And then for school year 25-26, that would be up to 579. Only receiving from Summers. There's the new Smallwood zone. And then the underlay for the roadways, western side of the county. Thank you. Next slide. The Summers zone, the changes, you can see a great number of changes to the Summers zone for alternative B. We have blocks moving to Smallwood, to Henson, to Davis, to Stoddard, and to Picklewaxen to create the Summer zone. State rated capacity of 795. The official enrollment in 9/30/19 was 1086. The projected growth numbers for 22-23 would be at 704, and 25-26 would be at 911. Next slide. So there you can see kind of a close-up of the summer zone, and then the roadway underlay as a third slide, and that's alternative B. The Stoddard zone changes alternative B. You'll see basically folks moving in, number of blocks from Henson to the north, and then from Summers to the south to make up the new Stoddard zone. The state rated capacity, the projected state rated capacity with the district be 975. Currently, the state rated capacity is at 711. The official enrollment, September 30th of 19, was 814. Projected growth for 22-23 will be at 966, as well as 25-26, same at 966. And there you see the Stoddard zone, as well as the third slide, which is the roadway underlay.
Thank you, Brad. Next, we have a quick comparison chart that was put up for general public use. This compares the middle schools, all listed along the left-hand side of the screen, and then followed to the right-hand side by the state-rated capacities of the schools. Then there's September 30th, 2019 official enrollments, and a alternative A and alternative B with 2 columns for what their numbers look like for school year 22-23. As was mentioned, 2 things to highlight. The Benjamin Stoddard target with 975 is the number that the redistricting committee worked toward when they were working on the formulating their plans. And as Mr. Snow mentioned, the blocks also were coded so the enrollment growth that is coming from information coming from county government and from the town of La Plata were matched to those enrollment blocks. So as the committees moved existing students, they also accounted for growth that would occur in those windows of up to 2 years and then up to 5 years.
Here we have the enrollment, the SRC, and the 5 years of growth. Same setup as the previous slide, with the left-hand side showing the middle schools, followed by the state-rated capacity, the official enrollment, and then the alternative A and alternative B projected numbers for school year 25-26 for each of the schools, as you can go down through and compare those, whether you're looking at alternative A or alternative B. Some resources for you to get additional information. Find information on the redistricting through our Charles County Board of Education website. You can also explore each option with our interactive maps. If you go to the website, you can click on either option A or alternative B, and you can click in your address in the upper right-hand corner. And there are a number of features that you can utilize. Just understand that there's no damage you can do to the system. If you want to explore it, you can turn on and off school zones. You can also see the different colors, the outlays to where your house would fall under alternative A or alternative B. We get a great deal of the information from various county organizations and county government that we load into different layers of that, so that information is also there for your reference. If you have any comments, feel free to email those comments at redistrict@ccboe.com.
And our final slide of the presentation just goes over what's next. As was mentioned, we had already had the first virtual public hearing on Monday, August 23rd, 6 to 8. We held the in-person public hearing on Tuesday, August 24th at La Plata High School in the auditorium from 6:30 to 8:30. We're holding the third virtual public hearing today, 6 to 8. On Tuesday, September 14th, the superintendent will present her recommendation to the board. We will then conduct 2 public hearings on that. Monday, September 27th, be an in-person public hearing from 6:30 to 8:30 at Westlake High School in the auditorium. And then Tuesday, September 28th, will be a virtual public hearing from 6 to 8 p.m. Additionally, in October, the board will have the ability to take action on the redistricting, and the redistricting would actually take effect at the start of the 22-23 school. That concludes our presentation.
Steve, thank you. I wanted to, we're following the questions in the chat, and I'm going to ask Shelly if she could queue up a couple of summary clarification points that have come up in the chat that staff, I think, may be able to respond to. Shelly, can you queue up a couple of the questions and some of the follow-ups, please, so that we can respond to a couple of these?
Sure. So it's more of a comment based around a question. A parent has commented in the chat that her child was moved during her elementary school year, and now through this redistricting process at the middle school level, her child would be redistricted in the 8th grade year. So is there information that we can share in regards to the redistricting policy that we have in place in regards to moving students within a particular time frame?
Yes, there is a policy that we would not move students more than one time within 3 years at the same school level, but does not apply from level to level.
Okay, there's another question here. A community member wants to know where they can go to type in their address to determine the middle school that their child would be zoned for next year. And if that information is not available now, when would it be available?
That information is available. If you click on one of the links for alternative A or alternative B, it'll take you to an interactive map where you can put your address in, and it will take you, if you turn on the school zones, it will put your address into that appropriate school zone under alternative A or B.
Okay, another question I see is regards to the target for transportation time. This particular family currently is zoned for Milton Summers, which is about 8 miles from their home. But in both of the alternatives, it's 25 minutes on the bus. I believe in both of the alternatives. This particular family would be going to, if you look into the chat, to 2 different locations. So the question was about the target for transportation time, and I believe this question specifically addresses the move from the Summers zone to the Smallwood Middle School zone.
That may not be inaccurate. So if we look at so many of the places that were within the summer zone, it may have been about 8 or 10 minutes travel time. And what we're looking at from some of the places that the committees have chosen to move to the Picklewaxen Zone, it may be around 20 or 25 minutes. So as far as a target, I don't believe that they had a target travel time. I think they looked more at what they determined to be reasonable.
Just to confirm.
Typically, transportation tries to keep routes within the county under 45 minutes.
Thank you.
There's another comment in the chat from a parent who has concerns about their middle school child being redistricted for a second time. I believe this particular family situation, the child was redistricted in elementary school when Billingsley Elementary School opened. The concern that is shared is just in regards to, you know, the ability for those kids to make community connections. There's another question in the chat about Matthew Henson Middle School and questioning, it looks like they changed from the Henson to the Smallwood Middle School zone because the Smallwood zone is a smaller enrollment. There's another question that what is the time frame for the school system to go through this process again with a new middle school and maybe a new elementary school that are being built? This individual is trying to anticipate change. So that question is really about the time frame for the next school construction.
Sure, Shelly, I can jump in on that. Going back to your last comment about General Smallwood was a school that had room for students to be brought to it. And so, yes, they did have a lower enrollment, and so they were able to shift kids from Matthew Henson to, so that was, I believe, something that both of the plans were suggesting to do. Going to the second part of the question, there is a plan for another new middle school, and we are still working out the details of the exact location of that, but that is potentially available to open for school year 25-26, assuming that all the capital needs that are already being requested continue to stay on schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Andritz. There's another question in here in regards to splitting specific neighborhoods. In regards to this specific question or comment is about the Quail Wood subdivision. There's a question about that in the chat, that the individual just says that they thought maybe we should have postponed this process until the school district returns to some additional normalcy, and the picture's a lot clearer. I'm just reading that verbatim from the comment, but it's in specific reference to the Quail Wood subdivision.
So I can jump in on that. There was a question that had arisen on Quail Wood as it is interconnected with several neighborhoods, and that actually has been looked at very clearly, and we're confident that the plan as shown does reflect that Quail Wood is one neighborhood section shown and not being rezoned. However, the other zones, the other 2 neighborhoods that access or touch Quail Wood are being impacted or changed. One of them would be a no impact because it is, as we understand, an active adult age 55 and older community, which would not have school children.
There's another question in here. I believe this was shared during the presentation, but what's the total number of students moved in Plan A and Plan B?
The numbers of actual students existing in the system that are moved, I believe Plan A is 992, and I believe Plan B is 1,040.
There's an additional comment that this individual may have missed the initial part of the presentation when the discussion about how will the determination be for choosing between Plan A and Plan B for redistricting.
So the superintendent will make her recommendation at the September 14th meeting. The superintendent has the ability to choose Plan A or Plan B, or make a modification to Plan A or Plan B, whichever she believes is in the best interest of the school district.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
Sorry,
There's
one
a
more,
few
Shelly.
comments. There's a few comments in here about just the concerns over students being moved. There's a lot of change in a short time period. There's also some concerns about traffic in 301. There is another question about, has there ever been a consideration to just move the incoming 6th and 7th graders and allowing the 8th grade students to stay?
So the two committees were not tasked with that. Their task was to look at the 8 middle school zones and look at the 8 middle school state rated capacity and try to balance that. And then those two presentations were done in August are presented to the superintendent. And as Steve was saying, the superintendent does have the authority to select one of those plans with modifications. And then there will be 2 more town halls that will be held. And then ultimately the board will make the final determination. But if you look at past redistricting processes, there have been at times modifications made. And I'll speak, the latest one was the high school redistricting, where students who are going to be seniors were not moved when St. Charles was built and opened, and the other 6 high schools were rezoned. So that is something that can be considered. It's not something that the 2 committees were tasked with doing.
Mr. Heim, you touched quickly on high school redistricting. Someone did ask if there are plans to redistrict the high schools at this time.
No, there are no plans to redistrict the high schools at this time. We do not have in our 10-year CIP plan, a plan for a high school, and that is based upon where we sit currently with our current 7 high schools and their state rated capacities with their current enrollments. So for the most part, they are pretty much balanced with the exception of North Point High School, which is over its state rated capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Heim. There's another question about the criteria. What is the criteria for the superintendent to choose one plan over the other? Dr. Navarro, did you want to address that question?
What I will say is that the process of having the community bring up the plans is an important one. So this is not staff's plan. This is the community members that were selected to look at the current zones and come up with a plan. Obviously, we are there's a couple of drivers in my recommendation moving forward, and all the feedback that we're getting is actually very helpful for me to think about how to minimize disruptions to families and maximize the utilization of our facilities for as long of a period of time as we can before any other as we're a county that is growing. And so that's an important piece. So all of the comments that you are putting on the chat as community members are important as I think about the best option to bring forward to the board as they make the final decision. So all of these things are helpful.
Thank you, Dr. Navarro. There's a question from a parent here. How can I get my child transferred to another school? There is a school change request form that is posted on the school system website, which is ccboe.com. I believe you can also call your child's current school and ask for the process and for forms that are part of that process. That's in response to that particular parent's question. There is some information in the chat also about if there's a significant possibility of a new school being built in 2 years, then why doesn't the board table the redistricting process until that decision is made?
I can start with that. So part of the process, as has been mentioned a couple of different ways, and a couple of different times, we need to address the additional capacity that's going to be present at Benjamin Stoddard when the renovation expansion project is completed to start the school year 22-23. But we also have several schools that are currently over, and at least one or two of them considerable bit over their state rated capacity. So part of the charge for the committee was to adjust the boundaries for Stoddard, but also look at the ways to balance the overcrowding situations that exist at other existing existing middle schools. So again, the board, the superintendent do have their will to choose things of this nature, but there is a need now based on those enrollments to adjust the zones.
I can elaborate also on the comment about another middle school being built in 2 years. Number one, for the school system to get state funding from the state for school construction, we have to demonstrate an overcrowding at schools surrounding where the proposed new school would be built. And as a result of, and the whole goal of this current redistricting process is to balance out and bring all 8 schools either at or under, as close to be under state rated capacity as they can be. So when looking at that time frame, number one, we have to be able to demonstrate after redistricting that we have several schools in an area that are overcrowded for a proposed school to be built in that area. But even at that, you're looking at a year of planning and design to get a school ready to start construction. And then when building a brand new middle school, you'll be looking at roughly a 2-year time frame for that school to be built. So, at minimum, and Mr. Andrews, you can comment on this more so than I can, but we'd be looking at a minimum of 4 years from next fall before we would see another middle school opening based upon the current timeframes and working with the state to get a school built.
And I concur with your comment. That's a best case scenario of how you could get that new middle school in place.
There's another question in the chat that talks about, has there ever been any consideration or any in the future to develop a feeder pattern for the school system, talking about identifying neighborhoods to feed a specific elementary school, and then those elementary schools would feed a specific middle school and moving forward.
Based on the different capacities at elementary schools compared to middle schools compared to high schools, and also based on the fact that we currently have 22 elementary schools, 8 middle schools, and 7 high schools, we're never going to have a situation where you have different capacities at all 3 school levels, and you have different numbers of schools. We'll have a perfect feeder system, and also that's going to be coupled by the fact of we have growth in different areas of the county, and in some areas of the county you have less growth that occurs. So in terms of the ideal idea of having a perfect feeder system, I don't see that happening. But for the most part, when we look at elementary to middle to high school, there are some patterns that you will see, considering the fact that, again, there are different school numbers at each level and different numbers of schools at each level.
Thank you, Mr. Heim. Another question in the chat, does this redistricting include the potential of the new construction being planned off of Hawthorne Road?
I'll chime in on that one. So this, as we did mention, does account for any approved plans for subdivisions in Charles County or in the town of La Plata. So there is a large development called Heritage Green that will be taking place within the town of La Plata, and that growth was accounted for with this redistricting plan. There are other plans that the town is considering that are not in that window within 5 years, that are not factored in, but anything that is an approved project in the town of Plato or Charles County that will occur within that 5-year window was accounted for with the growth factor.
Thank you, Mr. Andritz. There's another question. Will the process be done again after the 5-year growth? How many times is a redistricting done?
So with the middle school redistricting, if the middle school number 9 is delayed and how long it could take before we can actually get it open, the next middle school redistricting would be delayed as well. It is tied to capacity, it is tied to new buildings. Whenever you have a new school, you have a need for rezoning because you'll create a new zone for that school. But we can have what we call spot redistrictings that will pop up from time to time. The last time middle school was done was back in 2011. We did a spot redistricting at Davis Middle School because of overcrowding issues that existed at just that school. So you can have it occur in either of those two situations, but we may be 5 years, we may be 6 years. It's going to depend on how funding comes forward on current CIP projects and how that will impact when we can get to middle school number 9.
And another measure that the school system can take is that the superintendent can issue a moratorium on a specific school or a specific area based upon a large number of growth in an area that is causing overcrowding at a particular school. And that did happen in the summer of 2015 with Milton Summers, and there were 4 blocks for residents who attained a UNO, use and occupancy, after that date in 2015 that were moved from Summers to Stoddard.
Thank you, Mr. Hyman, Mr. Andritz. There's another question in here, and forgive me if you both have addressed this already. There's a question from a community member who's interested in knowing where the new middle school is going to be built.
So we are currently working on a location. It is likely to be on lands that will be given to us from St. Charles as part of their Docket 90 project that they're going through and developing. However, we do also have a CIP project that was locally funded to purchase a middle school site through monies from Charles County government. So it could be one of 2 different ways it could come forward, but it is more than likely going to be part of what we will get through St. Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Andritz. There's a couple of comments and questions in the chat in regards to why are families experiencing their children are being bused to a school that is further away from maybe a closer school to their neighborhood.
I can comment on that. As Mr. Andritz said, when you start looking at school zones, the committee is tasked with taking those outer layers of an existing middle school, in this case, that is being redistricting, and then moving those outer parts of the neighborhood, those outer block numbers, if you've seen reference in those maps, to schools that are nearby that have available capacity. So unfortunately, you'll see in densely populated areas where neighborhoods are relatively close to the school, but because they're densely populated, you have to start looking at those outer layers of that zone. And unfortunately, to alleviate the overcrowding at that overpopulated school, move those outer layers to the closest school that has capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Heim. There's a question in the chat about why hasn't the school system looked at building a middle and high school in the Hughesville area, and they're citing the growth in that area. It seems like that would help take some of the strain off of the surrounding schools.
So one thing when Mr. Andrews was talking about the possible location of the next middle school, or whether it be an elementary school or high school, for state funding, they have to be located in PFA's priority funded areas, which are what areas of the county or the state considers high growth areas. So even though there is growth in Hughesville, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Andritz, not all of Hughesville is in the PFA.
That is correct. Additionally, one of the other obstacles that we always face are water and sewer service. And so if you don't have public water and sewer service, you have a much more difficult time siting your school, laying out a large scale septic system. And so generally we don't want to have those as part of a new project. We want them always to be located on public water and sewer, which generally corresponds with priority funding areas.
Thank you both. There's a comment in the chat after listening to the last public hearing. Maybe it's time that alternative C is directed to address some of the concerns that are coming up this evening. There's also a question in the chat about if the questions and responses from tonight's hearing will be publicly posted. Yes, we will post that information on the redistricting page on the school system website. Question for either Mr. Heim or Mr. Andritz: which middle schools will still be over the allotted state allocation after option B, or excuse me, after option A and option B?
I believe if you refer to the charts that we had pulled together at the end of the PowerPoint presentation, it lists right there for you in two charts. One is the 2-year growth and the second one is the 5-year growth. It lists the state rated capacity and what the enrollment is proposed for each school under A and B. So it's an easy, quick comparison if anyone wants to go back and look at that to see who might be over that state rated capacity. But that's all right there in those two charts. And the presentations, this presentation will be available on the website, but it also is almost identical to the one we presented earlier for the virtual and the in-person public hearings, which I believe were available as well. Shelly.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Andritz. The final comment that I see in the chat, a parent is saying that the proposed plan moves her child from a school with higher test scores in reading and math to a school that data is showing significantly lower in those areas. And what's the plan that would help children benefit academically? How would the proposed plans benefit students?
So I can start with that, and somebody might want to pick up from the education side. Part of what the committees are tasked with doing, as was mentioned by Mr. Heim earlier, the committees are actually citizens who are tasked with just balancing the numbers. They are tasked to do their best to create zones, count for growth, and balance the middle school capacity across the system. I would venture to say, and I would look for potentially someone from the education side to jump in, that services that would need to be adjusted based on the zones and based on the population changes would be adjusted after those take place.
Let me just add that I think, again, this is a process in terms of utilizing facilities, but the education and the programs in schools is something that we look at all the time, and the academic supports for students are based on the needs of students, and that follows wherever students are moved to or wherever programs exist. So actually, Mr. Andritz, you're correct. But the goal of this discussion specifically is to be able to have to maximize the use of facilities. That doesn't necessarily mean that the academic side, the curriculum side, doesn't look at the recommendations that are moving forward. And we're looking at a whole bunch of different implications that impact any of the recommendations from the superintendent up to the board.
Thank you, Dr. Navarro. There's a question in the chat. Are members of the community able to be a part of the committee when the redistricting is being considered?
Shelly, I can take that one if you'd like. The schools all ask for parent volunteers. And so those names are forwarded from the schools to the board, and those names are randomly drawn at a board meeting to select people that participate. So you're always encouraged, if you have students in school, to put your name on the list with the school to go in for that random draw. Additionally, if you don't have students in school, you're able to put your name in as a community at large member to request that you'd like to participate. Those again are additionally drawn at random.
Thank you, Mr. Andritz. There's a comment about the committee seems to come up with two different alternatives independently However, the results are very similar. Is it possible that there can be a different option which isn't so similar?
So one of the last steps of the redistricting process is we actually bring both committees together and we actually let each other present their presentations to each other. And then we had one final opportunity as then staff went back and took a look at both proposals, the verified numbers, the verified blocks, and all that information. We brought back both groups for them to take a final look independently at their respective proposal and if they wanted to make any changes before the August board meeting. So there was an opportunity after both groups had put together a proposal, them to see each other's proposal. And even after that, independently, we gave each group an opportunity to make changes if they would like to have made changes. And also keep in mind that even before the committees met, as Mr. Andrews said, way back in October of 2020, after our committee members were selected, we had a preemptive town hall where the community had an opportunity to come out and voice concerns, support things for committee members to consider even before they started their work.
Thank you, Mr. Heim. There's a few other comments in the chat. One person in particular is asking if there's a waiver that they can sign to have their child in a school that is closer to their home.
There is not a waiver, but as Ms. Mackey, as you pointed out earlier, parents can put in a transfer request. But again, that process includes both schools being involved in that request. And typically, if a school is overcrowded, unless there are extenuating circumstances, those requests are typically denied because again, we don't want to overfill our schools, if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Heim. There's a few more comments that I just wanted to share that I jumped over. One parent commented that in the spring with virtual learning transition into the summer, into the start of the school year, that parents have received a lot of communication. And while this process started earlier last year, they were concerned about the amount of communication that is going out to families and whether or not the community really had an opportunity to learn about the redistricting process. And then another parent in the chat, again, just commented about the concerns about the mental health of students and that this is a significant change for some kids during this particular time that we're in, and just express concerns over that. I do have a final question that just came into the chat, and specifically about children that are in the SOAR programs. What will happen if they have to switch schools?
Typically, if a student is placed in a regional program, that's based upon the IEP and the determination of that team who's developing that IEP. So when kids are placed in regional programs, typically they are not affected by a redistricting if the IEP calls for them to be at a regional program.
Thank you, Mr. Heim. Dr. Navarro, that's all of the questions I see in the chat as well as the comments.
Thank you so much. And I'm just reading through the last one that also cues up just some concerns around communication and timeline and people being absorbed in terms of, frankly, dealing with COVID and all of the different changes that have happened, and that we as the school system have been sending information about returning back to in-person learning and so forth. And so I just want to let the public know that we added this additional session because we wanted to make sure that we heard from the community. And so thank you for being here tonight. This is our largest gathering to date before I make my recommendation to the board. And there will be, like Steve showed today, a sequential timeline for the board to hear my recommendation, and then obviously for the board to take action. Please know that the good thing about asking you to please put information on the chat is that we are able to then print out this information as we have follow-up conversations. And as Shelly mentioned, we will try to get all of these questions. Some of these are sort of the same question, but asked in a different way, but we will try to get all of the answers that we noted tonight into the FAQ on the website. Also, please note that the website has detailed maps for you to look closely at the implications of both of the proposed plans. I look at that very carefully. And also, please note that this information is also provided to the public at large. So there was just another question, and this is important. It's just another question about the process. Once again, I think the process that we have utilized to do this is to go to the schools and ask the schools' parents and community members from those communities to be part of a team that is then selected randomly to come in and work together on that. So I just want to publicly also thank those community members that have spent countless hours with maps and trying to bring forward their proposals. Their proposals are after hours and hours of best thinking in service to their peers in the community at large. And we look at those proposals. I look at those very carefully, but I also look at the information that is shared by the community members as we make recommendations moving forward. So I want to thank staff tonight for going through the presentations, and then I will pass it to Ms. Wilson and the rest of the board members.
Thank you, Dr. Navarro, and thank you to the staff and to the volunteers that served on the committee. But I also want to say a special thank you for the community members that took a time out this evening to join us. There were great questions and very useful comments that were shared with us tonight. I'd like to share with the community members that are still listening that we members of the board, my colleagues, Vice Chairman Mrs. McGraw is listening, Ms. Abel, Ms. Brown, Mrs. Battle Lockhart, and Mr. Lucas. So your input is taken very seriously, and we appreciate you taking time to share this. This is an extremely important decision for us to make, and we value your input. I would also ask that for upcoming public sessions, please share with your other community members, your neighbors, and other folks that you know that have children into the school system. The more input that we receive, the better decision that we can make. So thank you again for joining us. And if there are not any other further questions or comments, I will ask if there's any questions or comments from my fellow board members before we adjourn.
Tina, this is Todd. I have something.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to share, based off a couple of comments that I heard. As a parent, there is a lot of communication coming via email, but however, as it relates to things like this being recorded publicly, if you have access to YouTube or CCPS-TV, you can always go back because there's recordings that everyone can listen to where we ask for public input or be a part of these committees. So if you don't want to dig through emails, you can kind of fast forward some videos to kind of see what topics are being addressed in the public sessions and the public meetings. That'll help you come abreast to what's being talked about in the board meetings when you can't attend them. So I just want to always remind people that there's recordings out there, even if you can't get through the email.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you soon. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.